So it is Monday night, and I already had dinner, and I had an inexpensive Pinot with it because I didn't want to open up anything special, and it was fine. There's nothing really wrong with this wine, and this is Willamette Valley Vineyards Whole Cluster Pinot 2022. I think in previous vintages I was a little more fond of this wine, but you're talking about a $25 Pinot, which is very drinkable. It's just a little short on the finish, but I'm just going to call it a pleasant wine. So paired that with a little bit of leftover lamb chop, and after that with a little bit of cheese, I'm having a Sheldrake 2011 dry Riesling. Loving my aged dry Rieslings. I'd say in this past year, we're mid-December, and all the magazines, periodicals are coming out with their top 100 wines of the year. And this is Wine Spectators, which I talked about in a previous video, where I think the list, the 1 to 100, is really solid. I'm just going to talk about 1 through 10. I'm not going to go through the entirety of the list. I think most people will gravitate towards the 1 through 100, assuming affordability. And I think I've read what Wine Spectator, it's availability, score, X factor, and something else, and then I heard there's a fifth factor. How much do they advertise in Wine Spectator? But I would hope that's not a major contributing factor, but they get advertisements like everything else, so who's to say? I thought about this last year, reflected a little on it. I think I drank more I absolutely drank more white wine this year than red. It's not that I don't love red wine. I absolutely do. With most cuisines I consider fine cuisine, I prefer red wine. But after having a bit of red wine, I get palate fatigue, and the tannin or just the red wine in general, I just want something a little bit more acidic and to liven up my palate. And I shift to white wine. What I used to do, let's say when I was younger, was I'd have some type of gin martini. So there's aperitifs, gin martini being something that opens up the appetite. You have an appetizer, you have the red wine, something. I then shifted away from gin martinis a little too strong, because then the wine would be felt a little muted because of the alcohol. I would go more champagne or some type of singular glass of a acidic white. And may or may not ended it with a port. And now I think I'd be gone away from a port and go more towards like a Sauterne, more of an acidic, sweet dessert wine. I don't do that all that much either. But now I'm even thinking I go to like a dry white, a Riesling, an aged Riesling, something of that sort, just because I may or may not have some palate fatigue from reds. I don't want to say white's my favorite wines at this point. I think I just love various categories and various types. But I absolutely have a new affinity for Riesling. I think it just started with going to the Finger Lakes, knowing Alsace in Germany. I can't get the German wine variety that I would love to see here, nor Alsatian. But the Rieslings in the Finger Lakes are absolutely available, and it just opened my eyes to just how amazing Riesling could be, and at the price point that can make it a daily drinker if you really wanted it to be. So, last year, I think my wine of the year, it was Ramirez de Placina red wine, Rioja, sub $20. I still believe that wine's amazing. I think I was getting it for 15 or 16. It's gone up to 18. Everything has gone up, but still sub $20. That Rioja is fantastic for a red wine. Fantastic. So, I'll go through the top 10, and I guess I'll start from 10 and go down or up. And I think Wine Spectator does a pretty good job, barring whatever heck their rating or how they do it. They claim they taste blind. I think they must taste blind in categories of wine, and I don't think it's 100% blind. I think they get some indicators of what they're tasting that day when you're tasting thousands upon thousands of wines. So number 10 is Ramey's Chardonnay Russian River Valley. They're putting it it's a 2022, so vintage does matter. they're calling it $50. I do not believe that Ramey Chardonnay is $50. I believe it's $40 in most cases. These wines are all slightly higher cost. This might be a California cost, which is possible, whatever it is. I think Ramey is an amazing number 10, and I say that, and not so much this one, ironically. They have named vineyards. Hyde Vineyard and Ritchie Vineyard are two of my favorite Ramey Chardonnay named vineyard, and they're awesome. And I have a Ritchie still. I think it's the old Wente clone, which came from Burgundy, planted in the 1970s. I've had this. This is the Chardonnay Russian River Valley. I don't know if I had the 2022, but I've had numerous of this, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but their other ones are just exceedingly better. So Ramey's a great producer of wine. You cannot have a bad Ramey wine, period. I've never had a bad Ramey wine. You will pay for the reds more money, but they're fantastic. Their cabs, whatever they make is fantastic. Number 9, GD Vajra Barolo. I have a video I was talking about this, about buying a case of it. I think it's that good. I pray that this does not make the price go through the roof. They claim it's $42 here. I was getting it sub 40 and saying it's the best Barolo I ever had for that price. I still will attest that it's definitely the best Barolo in that price range, in that 35 to 40. There's another Barolo that if that ends up on the top 10 next year, the Silvio Grasso, it's not as good as this, but it's solid, and actually it's even cheaper, I think. I think it's 30 to 32. Very inexpensive for Barolo. I think for Barolo, you do need to pay some money, but this GD Vajra, and this is like their, I think their low-end one, and it's fantastic. So I can only imagine what their upper-end ones are, and I've not had those. Number 8, William Salem, Pinot Noir, Russian River Valley, East Side Road Neighbors 2022, claiming it's $72. So William Salem being what put some Pinot Noir on the map for California. I've not had enough of them. I've had maybe one or two. I am on the hunt for some 2021 William Salem. So if I find it, I'm going to buy it. 2021 being an amazing vintage of Pinot Noir in Oregon and California. This is obviously California, well, Russian River Valley. So it's on my mental wish list. Great, great, great producer of Pinot. So far, 3 out of 3. And then we're gonna. So Domaine de Vieux Telegraph, Chateauneuf de Pape, La Croix, 2020, $114. I've not had this one. I've had the Domaine de Telegraph. I think the cost is $65.70. I've said it numerous times. Chateauneuf's, I believe, are a bit overpriced, and I don't know about this one. This is claiming 60 to 110-year-old vine, so very, very old vine. This could be fantastic. I've just never tried it. I should absolutely love Chateauneufs. I should. I just haven't loved enough of them, and because of that, I'm still searching for some great ones. And I did see a video that I made a year ago or last year, and I did love one that I did have, but some of the ones that are very well renowned I've had, and I thought they were fine, just not worth the cost. I prefer Chateau de Saint-Cosme is like Gingadas, which is also Southern Rhone. Number 6, Drouhin's Oregon Rose Rock, Pinot Noir from the Yola Amity Hills in Oregon, and I guess it's Domaine Drouhin. So huge producer out of Burgundy, making wine in Oregon, probably trying to do Burgundian. I've not had it. Claims $44. It's another 2022 vintage. I don't know what the 2022 vintage for Pinot is out of Cali in Oregon, but the 2021 was phenomenally high rated. And the ones I had had the delicious factor. A little bit riper, but delicious nonetheless. I don't know about that one. If I see it, especially for the cost, I'll absolutely try it. An Oregon Pinot, this thing 44, which means I probably could get it for 40. I'd absolutely try it. So probably really good. Number 5 used to be one of my favorite cabs for the cost, and wow, has it gone up. So Chimney Rock's cab, Stag Leap District 2021, is now listed at $120. I used to buy this wine for sub 40 and called it one of the best Cabernets out of Napa for cost. Hard to say that now for cost. Doesn't mean it's still not an amazing Cabernet. And I don't know that going into too much detail on it matters much, but either way, you could afford that Chimney Rock, go for it. It's going to be amazing. Great producer. Number 4, Faust Cab Soft Napa Valley 2021, $65. I think that is pretty accurate on the price. The one used to be about $50, definitely more in the 60s now, and I think it's solid. It's been solid. I've had it numerous times. So it's not a specific. So the Chimney Rock Stag's Leap, this is just Napa Faust, so it's probably blended from numerous AVAs in Napa. Coombsville's one of them that I could tell from the quick write-up here. Oh. Yountville, Oakville, Rutherford. It's a blend of places in Napa. So, surprised to see it at number 4, but it is. It's at number 4. So, I'm sure it's probably pretty good. Antinori, number 3, Tignanello. So, Tignanello is a legendary Super Tuscan, and 180. So, if you're willing to spend a couple $100, I'm sure the wine's fantastic. This is a 2021. The Super Tuscans, Sassicaia specifically, they've all gone way, way, way up in price. So you're talking about the Bordeaux of Italy is pretty much what I call Super Tuscan. In a lot of cases, though, there's a lot of Sangio. So Super Tuscan just means it can make the wine out of, well, anything. And I think Sassicaia is a Bordeaux blend 100%. I don't think there's any Sangiovese in it. Italy wanted to compete with Bordeaux and other parts of the world, so they just said, we're not just going to use our indigenous grapes, we're going to use the Bordeaux varietals, Cab, Merlot, Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, Malbec, Carmenere if we want. Maybe mix it with Sangio, maybe not, depending on what they can make out of it. So it's become a category of its own, but there's really no rules governing it. Bulgaria is another, it's the other name of the region that it's in. And the rules are wide open. So they'll have names like Sassicaia and Tignanello and other different names that you may or may not have seen. And the wines are slowly, slowly going up in price. All the ones I've ever had have been delicious and great, just pretty high priced. I'm sure there's some that are much cheaper than $200, but this one, Tignanello, being a pretty well-known one, is $200 and landed on Wine Spectator's number 3. Now this is their top 100 interesting or exciting wines of the year. Doesn't mean it's the best. That's, you can't put the 100 best wines here, because if you ranked some of the world's best wines, the prices are unaffordable for most, or unattainable for most. Part of the criteria here is availability. So Tignanello having 11,000 cases imported. If you want this wine, you can get it. If you want one of the greatest Pinot Noirs made in the world, DRC, Domaine de Romanée-Conti, you cannot get it. Even if you could afford it, it's almost unattainable. And it starts at $5,000. So that is what it is. Number 2, happy to see this here. Beaulieu Vineyard, a very historic vineyard winery in Napa. This is their George Latour Private Reserve 2021. Gosh, it's gone up. It used to be about 100, 125. I used to think it was way better than Robert Mondavi's Reserve in that similar price point. I used to think this wine was fantastic. Yes, you're paying about $100 or $125. Now it's gone up to $170. I do believe in the Beaulieu Vineyard portfolio, this is the best. I think they have a few others below. They don't really even compete to this. Now, 170 is high. I'm hoping it's attainable for less than that. And if it is, it's an absolutely fantastic cab. Can I say well worth the money? You'll not regret what it tastes like, but you're going to pay for it. How's that? And as much as I am a big fan of 9 through 2, I am not the biggest fan of number 1. And it's a Chilean Dom Melchor cab from Puente Alto Vineyard 2021. I'm sure it's fine. I just talked about the Ledic from Rothschild and Catena, I think it's Catena, the collaboration, Los Vascos, the winery, and the wine was fine. I downgraded it to a 4 out of 5 for $80. I don't believe it's good enough. This, I feel like I had this once at a tasting, and this cost is 175, 18,000, okay, 5,000 imported, 18,000 cases made. So a fair bit stays in Chile or goes on other places in the world, not just the United States. But available at that price point for people that want to try it. So it is what it is. I think the list overall is great. I think the 100 to 11 are pretty good as well. The wines this year are in a good place for wine spectators, whatever they're calling it. They still say it's interesting or exciting or both. Doesn't really matter. But gives the consumers something to go by. It's difficult. The wine wall is a difficult thing to navigate. If you're not educated in wine or allow yourself to be educated in wine, it's easy to buy the same thing over and over. I love variety. I love trying new things, but you have to be adventurous for that. You have to have an adventurous and experimental palate to want that. If you really eat the same types of foods, 5 or 6 different foods, you probably will have an issue trying that many different flavors of different, be it wines or bourbons or tequilas or vodkas or gins or whatever your alcohol of choice is. With that said, I don't know what my wine of the year or 2 or 3 will be. I could absolutely say, as a category as a whole, I'm putting Riesling in there, and it's sort of a cop-out. But dry Riesling as a whole, to me, is becoming one of my most go-to wines. I just really enjoy it. I never thought I'd say this, but the lower alcohol and that freshness to them and the acidity just allows me to drink a little more of it without feeling fatigued or tired or waking up the next day and a little bit groggy. They just make you feel a little bit different. And a 12.5% wine versus a 14.5% wine sounds like a small amount, 2%, but it's an enormous amount of variance. So don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by that. The times of these giant alcoholic wines has shifted to more lower acidity, lower intervention. I'm sorry, higher acidity, lower intervention, lower alcohol. And it's a good trend. I think there's a happy medium though, because sometimes you just want a big, delicious, juicy wine to be 14.5%. And there's nothing wrong with that. They don't, the wine world and these vineyards and winemakers don't need to go too far, in my opinion. But what is my opinion at the end of the day? Just a consumer that enjoys wine. So I am going to put one wine on there, or another category. I believe the category of brooding big Grenache, because of its high acidity and low tannin, in a high alcohol state, 14-15%, has a really nice delicious factor. The other day, having a wine I haven't had in years, Alto Moncayo's Veriton. I think it's their entry-level Grenache out of Spain. It's a Campo de Bord. I forget exactly where it's from, so I don't want to even say it. And it was $30, and it was delicious. It had that delicious factor. I guarantee that would be a pleaser of many that like unctuous cab, that at $30 is difficult to attain. But this had it just had enough acid, and then the tannin wasn't in your face, but the wine was big and bold, but also just had that delicious factor. This deep, dark strawberry and cherry taste and aroma, and it was delicious. Bottom line, at the end of the day, we're drinking these things not to pontificate all night, but to enjoy what we are drinking. So I think that category, so I'm giving 2 categories, Riesling and Grenache, not picking a wine or 2 yet. But as I think about it more in the coming weeks, it's still only mid-December, I'll pick a wine or 2 that I believe can be my wines of the year, I think, or my wine discoveries of the year. As I go through some of the videos that I've made, I've discovered that I did like a few orange wines, but on the whole, the category is not my favorite. I don't know that it was this year, but the year before, I really explored pet nats, and I've just realized it's just not my thing. Sparkling wines, I explored a lot of the inexpensive sparklers, but I do always land in champagne. But I do believe when they do extended tirage or aged champagnes, even from Finger Lakes, and then there's some Cremants, Alsatian Cremants typically, or what I prefer. The Cremants out of Bourgogne and the Loire I like less. The ones out of Alsace I seem to like more. There's a crispness to them. There's more of an elegance to them. I do prefer champagnes that are Blanc de Blanc made of Chardonnay, 100% Chardonnay. Doesn't mean I don't like others. I do like oak-aged champagnes that I've realized, Bollinger and some others that oak-aged their champagne a little bit. Krug, I think, does it too, but Krug you're going to pay some money for, but Krug is utterly delicious. If you have $200-300 and want to buy an amazing champagne, skip all the BS and go buy a Krug, and you will not be disappointed. So, just looking at some of the wines I've put up on my shelves in the past year, and there's nothing screaming out at me as like, this is the one to talk about, like the Ramirez del Pacino last year, like a discovery of wines to serve people. The Veriton, I think, is on there, though. I believe that's a crowd pleaser. I believe that people buy that and drink it. It's gonna satisfy. It's $30. Last year my wine was sub 20. One of them this year will be 30, and not as well. Neither is super available, but available enough in decent stores to find it. I'll see if there's others in my mind. I think there was I think it's sitting right here. Is it right here? It is right here. This is a wine that I believe, the Termes Toro. So this is made from Tempranillo, but from the Toro region of Spain. I'm going to have this on its own one night. I should have opened this tonight. Now that I see it, I made a mistake opening that while I'm at Pinot. I should have opened this instead, because I do want to see if this can be my Ramirez of this year. And it's going to be Spain again. Spain still remains a really great bargain area. And Portugal is a bigger budget area for wine, but more difficult to find the same wines. They're not as readily available. So when I tell people to buy Portuguese wines, I give them a price point and to say, look for Douro, which is just one of the regions. But I know that's typically going to be a bigger than some of the other regions, so it's sort of a good estimate. I don't know that anyone ever takes me up on it. And sometimes some are stinkers. They're even at the $25 range of a Douro. It might be decent, but nothing exceptional. So, a lot of words today, a lot of talk about various topics. I'm going to go back and enjoy a little bit of this Riesling. Think a little bit more about some other wines that I may or may not have discovered this year where I think would be worthy of your money and of your time. And with that, have a good night.